Hello again, everyone. And today's instructional video here, we're going to be talking about using the databases themselves. So how we first might get at the databases is easy enough. Here on the main library page, right under the search box, you just click on databases right there. And then we are at the main database page. The database page here leads us to all of the host of databases that we have. As you can see, there's 208 databases that we have here. You don't really need to use all of them. It just depends on what it is you're working on. It would depend on the database that you choose. Most people can get away with probably 2 or 3 databases depending on the level of their research projects, but that just kind of depends on the field of interest you're looking at as well. You'll notice here that we have general categories like humanities or the social sciences or the business area. And you could click on any one of these and find information related to those, find databases related to those particular fields. I should point out here the statistics section would be particularly useful, I think, to many people. If you click on statistics, it'll show you the databases that we have here as they relate to statistical information. And here you can see a few. I do recommend these two under S, Statista and Statistical Abstract of the United States. These would be particularly useful if you're looking for evidence or information pertaining to your research topic. So always remember that section when you're looking for things. Another one to pay attention to, of course, is online video. We see that one here. You take a look at that one, as well as reference tools, encyclopedias, dictionaries. Most of the reference you'll find here in these databases are electronic ebooks. So you don't have to worry about getting any books here in this case, but take a look at those as well. And finally, here we have the newspapers. All the newspapers we can find here that we have access to, you could find the database is under this particular section here. Now, if we go back to database home, another section I want to point out when it comes to deciding on databases is right here under more subjects. If you click on the drop-down menu, you'll notice the number of subjects that exist in here, and they're far more detailed than, say, business or health or technology. You can see in here like anthropology, we see botany, we see a number of more specific fields of study where you might find particular use in these databases, of which I highly recommend. Now, a couple of things about deciding on a database to choose from would be what is the field I'm working on, right? So the field might have a lot to do with which databases you use, but also remember databases do cross various fields. It's important to remember that as you're kind of looking around. For instance, if I was a marketing major and I was doing a marketing project, I wouldn't necessarily just go to the business section. It is possible that I might go to the P's and look at the psych articles or psych info databases. Psychology has a huge element inside the marketing field. It might also be useful that I use these databases as well. That also does not preclude me from using something like the Sociindex. If you go to S's, you can see here under this database, you might find the sociology databases. Science Direct is here. Also, you'll find Sociindex here. Now, Sociindex could be used in a variety of fields, not only sociology, but criminal justice, education, business. So a lot of different fields might utilize the sociology databases as you see them here. So that's something to think about as you're deciding on a database and looking for places to start as you get started. Sometimes choosing a database can be an overwhelming task, but that's the kind of things you want to maybe think about when you're deciding on a few. Now, I will point out that a couple do exist that are very general and might be helpful to many people. One of them being this one here, Academic Search Complete. I do recommend that you take a look at that one. If you're unsure of which one to start with, this one is good for most people to find, at least get started on their particular projects as they get going. Another one is under the P's, and that would be called ProQuest Central. ProQuest Central is another general database that can be particularly useful for people who are unsure which database maybe they want to utilize at this point. But those two are big generalist databases that most people can at least get started on when it comes to finding information. One thing to remember as you're using databases and as you're deciding whether you want to use a database or not, there's some things to really discuss as to why you might use these. And as you're kind of continuing to work through Google searches and these kinds of things, you might notice that you're getting blocked from information on the open internet. I need you to remember that the library has databases like these, and we pay for these databases on an annual basis. At this point, about $400,000 a year. But we buy these databases so that you can have access to the information of which you're only getting to hear about on the open internet. And as you hear about these things on the open internet, you are realizing that as you try to click on them, you're getting blocked from paywalls and other types of reasons as you're kind of looking around. So remember, databases are allowing you the access to the information of which you get paywall blocked on the open internet. This is the relationship between databases and those things you might hear about on the internet but can't actually access. Remember that as you're doing searches. This is the relationship. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the databases and kind of play around with how we might search in it. This is just going to be a quick little overview on how might be some best practices in searching through these things. So let's go down and take a look at this general one so that this could be useful for most people that are coming viewing this video. So if you click on the name of the database, once you click on the name, it's going to open in another window. If you haven't done so already, it will ask for your login, and that includes your last name and your library card number. If you don't have a library card yet, you can go ahead and submit an application online, and somebody will email you your library card number. So go ahead and don't forget about that. So as we're in the databases here, you'll see that many of the databases, this is not the only one that kind of uses this, it has a 3 search boxes, something like this, the advanced search feature. I utilize these search boxes to help me choose main ideas, not ask the machine a question. It's far better to tell the machine that instead of my interest, I'm interested in how TV is bad for kids. I don't want to ask the machine that. I want to tell the machine what are the main ideas I'm interested in. So pluck out of your questions as you might have any of the main ideas. So if my main idea is in fact television is bad for kids, I might do something like this. Television, children, and maybe academics. Since I'm deciding on at this point, what in fact do I think is making this television bad for kids? And in this case, I'm kind of blanketly saying, well, I think maybe television affects a student's academics. That's kind of the question I'm saying here in this search, right? I don't have to ask the question. I just have to tell the machine to find me these 3 words. And it will do so, right? Hit search and see what in fact you can find. Again, remember, I'm not trying to replace how you search for information. I'm adding to your repertoires. I'm adding ways of finding things, right? So I'm telling you to use main ideas. You may already do ask machines questions. This is all fine and dandy. But remember, if your way is not producing the kinds of information that you were looking for, give these other ways a try, these other methods a try that you're kind of being instructed to do. So try these. Main ideas is the search that I find particularly useful, especially in the databases. So if I look through the results here, you can see the kinds of things that might come up, right? Television. So this one's about television acting. That one might be about dance, right? We can kind of see the different articles. Now, people would get frustrated very rapidly. Don't. Look through the results, see what you can find. Even if I don't find an article that I'm particularly going to be useful to me, I will find articles that will tell me more information or provide me with more vocabulary or search language I could potentially use. Looking at this one here, number 6, you can see not only is the article seem particularly helpful to me as we're talking about screen time, right? And that's another phrase I should probably remember, screen time. The other thing we want to look at is down here in the subjects. We find a number of different search terms that could be potentially helpful for this, right? Academic achievement instead of just academics. I might give that one a try later. Once I find these kinds of search terms and phrases, I almost always will bring them to a Google Doc like this and keep track of them, right? I keep track of academic achievement. I saw screen time. There's a lot of things that I'm doing here that could be potentially helpful as we're kind of looking for information. So always kind of remember that. There might be some other terms that we might want to look at, right? As we look at these results. I gotta look through them. Life skills might be one. Video games, computers, maybe the emotional um, effects of television or screen time at this point. Maybe I'm expanding my search to screen time. And look at this phrase here, computer screens and health, right? So maybe there's a number of things that we can kind of deal with here. One of them being, of course, health might be another section that I'm working on. Emotions might be another one that we might want to take a look at as we're dealing with this particular problem of screen time and television. Right, right. I have television we need to put in there. I keep a group of search terms like this so that I can come back to it all the time and kind of try different searches as we're kind of looking for things. If I find an article I like, I'll link to it here. Any new ideas, right? So one of the new ideas we did come on is emotions. How does television or screen time affects children's emotions? Another thing to consider too is, remember, right now we have kids, children, we could say toddlers, we could say infants if we wanted to, teenagers. There's a lot of terms for children, the broad term, as we kind of think about where we want to go with this. Okay? So always consider that as you're kind of looking around for information. Think about the language you're using, right? And these can help us a lot. I might come back to this one if healthcare is something I want to kind of deal with. Computer screens and health. So that might be one to kind of consider. Now we can come up here and kind of change these if we wanted to. Here's some other searches, right? Child development. That might be very good too, as we're kind of considering this topic. Academic achievement again, we see that here. So maybe we try some other searches as we're looking around. So if I try some, I might try, let's try this one. Let's try academic achievement in our search. So instead of that, we do academic achievement. Television, children, and academic achievement. See what kinds of things we come up with. And so we can take a look and see what's going on here. Here's obesity comes up under this one. So again, we're dealing with the health issue. And that may be where I want to focus. Maybe I was looking at the academics initially, but I'm letting the literature guide my kind of inquiry, right? If people are talking, and this may be of particular interest to me, and I might go ahead and do that. Maybe there's something to do with health that's particularly helpful. Health behavior, we can see here. Might be another phrase I would try out. As we scroll down some more, we can see some other things that might be helpful. Educational attainment, right? Sleep issues I'm seeing in here as we kind of looking around at some different kinds of information. We've seen this one before. So that might be an article we definitely want to take a look at in some detail as we kind of go on. Cell phones, I haven't even mentioned cell phones yet, so that might be another area we want to kind of focus on. That might help us focus on the screen time issue as it relates to children, right? And Mary, the effects of mobile phone use on academic performance. Here we see an article talking about that right here. So there's a lot of things that we can kind of do as we're searching without actually having to look at any of these articles yet. I keep seeing this one, child development, so I might focus on this one too. So we could try a different search for that. Let's take a look at that. Let's do child development and see what kind of things we get. Now we could change television to screen time and see what other things that we might end up with. And here you can see a number of different things come up as we're looking around, right? Children's health, nutrition, child development, cognitive testing. That might be another one we take a look at, right? I might hold on to that term as I'm looking around and keep that there. That might be a good one. Again, keep track of the language that you're encountering. Cognition itself, executive function and screen-based media on preschool children. That might be really focused. Now, the other thing we're doing here too is we're limiting by age of child, right? And that might be a thing that we want to focus on too as we're discussing this topic. Your short-term memory, that might be a one we want to look at. I like cognition though. We might come back to this phrase or term as we get started. I'm going to give that a search here in a second as we look through these results a little bit more. Language delay, socio-demographic factors, those might be things we want to focus on as well. Okay. Here's another one here, cognitive development. That one hits hard, right? So this one I might really want to focus on too as we look around. So let's try that. Instead of child development, let's try cognitive development. Screen time in children and cognitive development. And then we can see the number of articles that come up. Mental illness, affective disorders, which is essentially, if you don't know, look it up, right? If you don't know what a word is, I always Google it. I look up 10 words a week without a doubt, every single week. There's no harm in looking up words you don't know, because in many cases, what happens is you end up having to look these up because you're kind of just infusing yourself in this particular field's literature, and it becomes a little bit difficult. So always give that a try as you're kind of looking around. If you don't know what a phrase means, look it up, Google it, see what we can focus on. All right. So that's how we might do a number of different searches, and you can see how the relevancy is quite good as we're kind of looking around. Now, this search, I could take children out of it entirely and just search for screen time and cognitive development. And then we can see what kinds of articles might come up as we look around. Okay, that's a good move to kind of make. Now, as we're looking at our articles, it's important that we look over here on the left side. There's a couple of tools that we can utilize. One of them is the Limit To section, where you can limit your results to just those full text articles that are available to us. If you need scholarly or peer-reviewed articles, you can limit to that as well. And importantly, look at the source types section. If an academic journal or a magazine or a newspaper are in the result list, it'll show me this here on the left side. If I'm new to a topic, I tend to try the magazines first so that I can get some sense of what's going on. That would supplement kind of my general Google searches. And then as I become a little bit more knowledgeable, read a little bit about this topic, then I start tackling the academic journals. Academic journals can be very difficult to read if you don't have any kind of background information. But as you start gaining that background information, it can be particularly helpful. So if I wanted to, I would just check, show me the magazines. And it will show me the two magazines that exist here, right? And there we have it. Distractions. I see that might be a great phrase as we're kind of talking about cognitive development in children and screen time, of course. Though this article itself is distracted parenting, which is also probably a real problem, the phrase distraction and the idea and the concept of distraction helps me think of new ideas that I might want to focus on as I'm dealing with this particular subject matter. Right? And we can always come back to all the results over here on the left. It's not a big deal. And let it update. But that's great that doing that just allowed me this phrase, the term distractions as we're kind of looking around. So other things we can do, we could try a different search entirely. Maybe somebody else's topic is different, like maybe someone is doing a topic on special education, right? And that may be a search that we want to try. And we're going to look at inclusion as a special education concept and exactly what it is that teacher aides do and in an inclusion classroom as we kind of do that. So we do a search like this. Now, I should say right now off the top of it, as we're doing these searches, we do not need to fill in all three of these boxes. You may just use two of them, which is fine. And as we look at the results here, it's classroom context for learning in primary and secondary school. That might be another thing we look at. We can see special education here, secondary school students. So again, this might be where we decide, do I want to talk about secondary or elementary school, right? This is the time to kind of make those decisions as you see the phrases come up. Teachers' assistants instead of teachers' aides. So that might be another thing that we utilize. We might want to use teachers' assistants as a phrase. Scroll down to the next one. Inclusive education. Another one, school integration. Very good. Teacher coordinators, teachers assistants, classroom environment, mainstreaming and special education. We're gaining all this language as we're just kind of looking at the first three articles, right? Now, I like this one. I'm going to use this phrase here as we're kind of dealing with it. Inclusive education, which is what I meant when I said this. But now I can just take out special education and inclusion and just say, let's find information on inclusive education. You can see the kinds of information that kind of come up for that. Social interaction might be another one, kind of working on. Scaffolding is a key role for teaching assistants. This might be a really good article that we want to focus on here. So if it is, you'll notice that the PDF exists right here. Always make sure that that is in fact listed there. If it's not, there are other means to find these articles, I should say, and you'll find that in other videos that we've created. But if I want to find some more information about this article, I will click on the title of it and get inside. Now, as I'm looking at this information, there's a lot of stuff that we can utilize. Scaffolding is a teaching method. I'm going to hold on to that. Again, teachers' assistants, inclusive education, and this one's about primary education, right? I do notice this is a British journal, which is not the end of the world, right? Just have to make sure that and understand that perhaps British methodology might be different than that in the United States. Now, the abstract here is your best friend. If you read the abstract as well as the introduction to the articles, these two things can help you with efficiency. I do not need to read this article, which is 14 pages long, if I find out from the abstract and the introduction that this is not really sending me in the information that I'm looking for, right? I can usually make that determination based on these two things, abstracts and the introduction to the article. Once I've made that determination, it is in fact something I do want to collect. If you look over on the right, there's three ways to collect: Google Drive, email, and the permalink section. If you look on the left of the article here, you'll see the full text PDF. Always go for the PDF if you have two options. The PDF is a direct scan of the article itself. And if you like the article, then we can click on it and download the PDF. We're going to open the PDF here and take a look at it. Right, so we have some background information here. The introduction to the article might be very useful as we're kind of looking around and seeing if this could be helpful. If you look over on the right again, you will see your collection methods. If you don't use here the PDF tools, download it to your own computer, this would be the best move to make. Now you could send it up to your Google Drive here, you could email it to yourself here, or you could collect a permanent link here. But if you are on your own computer at home, this might be the best move. Create a folder to collect your research and download the PDF. All right, so that might be another thing to kind of pay attention to as we're looking at these articles. We can go over here back to our result list and see what else we can find. So that was a good one. I think we did find one, and now maybe there's some other ones we want to look at. Teaching assistants, what qualifications and training do teaching assistants really need? This sounds like very useful. Training, students with disabilities, these might be incredibly useful phrases that I might want to try out in my next search. It's always important to remember to collect these things in here. So we might do inclusive education, keep track of your information, right? Lots of things we can do. Possible articles, we might come back to that if we need links. And then here we might talk about training. I didn't consider the training aspect of teacher assistants as we're discussing looking for information and as we're discussing inclusive education. Mainstreaming we're seeing again. That might be another one I utilize as we look around. And that's how we can find and collect language as well as do different searches in the database. Now, you might notice that I never told the database to find me the negative effects or find me the benefits of this or that. I try to avoid these. Some might disagree with me, but usually what those answers are usually found when we're looking at information, right? The article itself is actually telling you, are there any benefits and are there any negative effects to this research that it's doing in so many words. So it's really important. I don't always guide the database to find me benefits. I usually tell it, find me this topic, and then I'll determine based on the results whether this article shows that it's beneficial or that it has negative consequences. That's how I kind of utilize this. Don't say it in the search box, but kind of look and see what you can find from the results. Because basically what that's doing is you're guiding the search a little bit too heavy, when in fact you want to see what's available, not find what you're looking for, which is hard to say. You don't want to guide it one direction. You don't want to give it your bias, right? I think inclusive education is excellent and should work and does work. And I'm going to start finding the benefits of inclusive education. That's great, but that does feed bias into your search a little bit. Instead, do something more broad, such as this, and we could start finding information that does tell me both aspects of it, good and bad, that might be useful when it comes to this subject matter. Another thing to do as you're kind of looking around, as I mentioned earlier, the limit to box, just click full text, and it will update. Let's hope. It will limit my results to just those articles that I can get in full text. And that will be a significant cut in the types of articles that might come up in our results. But nonetheless, given the fact that we are remote, this might be the best move to make in an online environment as we're kind of looking around for information. Okay, so now that we checked full text, you'll notice that we have 19 results, far fewer than we did before, but each of those actually has the full text available to you. You can see them as you scroll down. Each article here has the full article. And that's why we might use full text as we're looking for information, especially in an online or remote environment such as we are. Now, you should remember also, as we're kind of looking at information, that many databases, though they may cosmetically look different, do tend to function very similar to the one we're using here, which is provided by the company EBSCOhost. Other ones from ProQuest or ScienceDirect or JSTOR, and those might also have similar elements in terms of searching, but may cosmetically look different. Don't get scared from these particular database interfaces. Just try to figure out how they in fact function like we have been seeing the functionality here in this particular database that we've been searching. And again, that is how we might use a database. Remember to search with your main ideas. Don't ask the machine a question all the time. Use these buttons here, right? Use and. Connect your words with ands. Inclusive education and teacher aids. That's very important. As you're kind of talking to a machine, you use this word and to kind of connect your main ideas. You could do a number of different things with that, but for right now, let's just focus on using and to connect your main ideas to find information. So that's database searching in a nutshell. There's a lot more complicated methods and mechanisms within the databases we could talk about, but right now it's important that you just practice your searches. Consider your topic, build your vocabularies. These are very important. And also consider how I broke down these two topics, inclusive education and how television affects children, into their own basic concepts and thought about how we could break that up. Consider how you might do that with your own, right? Break it up into different pieces by who, what, where, how. These kinds of things can be very important. It kind of help you dig deeper into a particular topic. Remember, the library is here to help as much as we can. You can make appointments with me individually, or you can ask for library services on the website. We will have chat services during the day for people to kind of ask just-in-time questions and ask for help. Don't forget to be curious and take care of yourself.